What's up? It's Leo, Coach White Belt. Found out recently that my school actually has a uh, jiu-jitsu club. Um, so I went. It was their first practice was on the third week of the semester, and then their second practice was the following week, which was this week. And so the schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Friday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. and I have judo Wednesday and Friday, so I can't make it those days. But I came on Monday, so I went on Monday of this week, and I went Monday of last week. And my first experience was pretty good. My second experience made me question whether I should continue training there or not, and I'll tell you why. The coach is a brown belt under Jean-Jacques Machado. He's a real good guy, good coach. But there's just the class is really designed for absolute beginners because most of the people there are people who've never trained. Um, there was on the first day there was one blue belt, a handful of white belts, maybe 10, if that, probably less, and then like 50 some odd other people who were there for the first time ever. And so I went, and the class started off with introduction, which is introduction to the martial art, like a description for all the new people who were like, uh, what is this all about, right? And so the coach demonstrated some stuff, and then had like a mock 30-second roll with someone, and said, yeah, this is kind of what we're about. And I think it went over pretty well. And then we got into some warm ups, some drills, and some sparring. So the drills I felt like were a little bit much for brand new people. For me and the other white belts, and especially for that blue belt, probably pretty easy. But it was one of the drills was an armbar from the back control. So you got back control with the seat belt and your hooks, and passing the arm over the head to get to the armbar, which is actually pretty hard. Well, I wouldn't say hard. It's complex. There's so much to that that's being omitted, and so it would seem that maybe that's a little too much for first stayers. But at the same time, the people who they're going to be sparring against in men, like if they would show them details and everything else, and even if they showed them some basic moves like hip escapes and rolls, which we did prior to drilling anyway. Um, you can't expect a guy of similar size, of near similar size, who's there for their first day to take out somebody who's been doing it for months or years. So realistically, their sparring partners, the ones that they were gonna have a chance at beating, if that's what they were concerned about, were the other first daters. And so really they could pull off this move if they drilled it, a handful of times and said, "Oh, I kind of get how that works. I'm kind of remembering now. It's becoming easier by the time they get done drilling it." Then when it comes time to spar, and if they end up near that position, they have a goal in mind, and when they go for it, it's not like the other newbie is gonna know how to defend. At least not properly, they're not gonna hitchhike or out of there. They're not gonna hitchhike out of there, and they're not gonna um, rear naked uh, grip defense or stack or anything. They're not gonna know any of that stuff. So so even though they're missing a lot of the details to make that submission really work, it could still happen. It could still work. So and initially I thought that this might be a bit much for the new guys, but then I thought about it some more, and that actually that's totally fine. They're not gonna pull it off on me, but it's not like it's not like they're really going to be pulling off much of anything on me aside of the really big and powerful guys. And then they were able to pull it off on each other. So that's really all you need. Uh, and so that's more or less how the drills went. And then we sparred, and my first sparring match was against another white belt who had been doing this for maybe a year or so. I think that was what he told me was he had been practicing for about a year and he took a break, so he's coming back, which good on him. Um, but the match was a little bit lackluster for me. I am a little more active than him, and I have been training a little bit longer than him. The guy maybe easily had about 50 pounds on me, but wasn't as athletic. So that sort of evened out, and I had a pretty easy time. And it's not that I was, um, I don't know, disappointed. Like I expected more out of this guy. Like I don't know him, and and everybody gets there at their own pace, but um, I just wanted more. I wanted to get my butt kicked. So I saw the only blue belt, and I walked right up to him and I asked him if he wanted to roll, and he said, "Yeah, sure." So uh, the roll went something like this. He and this guy was a little bit bigger than me. It wasn't a big difference or anything. Um, we engaged, on our knees because the coach did not want people on the first day to be trying to take each other down because there wasn't enough mat space for it, first of all, and people would get injured pretty quickly, I think. So a good call. But I had this match with this blue belt, and it started. We both got a grip on each other, and eventually he started taking me down. I tried to pull guard, and he was going for a smash pass, and I went for the ghost escape immediately, which he was aware of. He didn't counter it by using the doorstop, but he did um, um, try to grip onto me as tight as he could and really use the grips. And I was getting out, but he was using quite a lot of strength to hold me there. I could feel it. I was like, man, this guy's really not giving it up. And there is a little bit more friction when you're wearing the gi, so it's not quite as easy to slip out once you've got it like it is in no gi. And I started to slip out, and I felt like, man, this guy really like will not let this go. And I thought, oh, of course, he's the only blue belt here, and I'm a white belt, and I don't train gi at my jiu-jitsu gym. Um, so so I don't have any stripes on my belt either. It's not like I'm a 4 stripe white belt or a 3 stripe white belt or anything. I'm a no stripe white belt. Who cares? Um, and so I was escaping, and eventually I got out. I got to the front headlock position, and he kind of just tried to blast right through me and got me down again. I wasn't concerned because I knew I'd just ghost escape on him because he was leaving himself open for it. So I went for it again, and this time he felt like he had lost some strength the first go. He didn't feel quite as strong. It was a lot easier to get out, and so I was kind of inching my way out, um, knowing that he's gonna be tired by the end of it because while I was on my way out and we were sort of head to chest or whatever, and I could see that his sweat was dripping onto the mat from his nose, from his hair, from his chin. I could see it. I could see it on his face, and I could see it on the mat. I could see it when it landed on the mat, and I was like, "This guy's really, really going ham right now, man." That's. I mean, I don't know. Maybe he's had a rough day or whatever, and maybe he just wasn't ready to be rolling, and he rolled anyway, which good on him. Um, but yeah, I was on my way out, and I thought I have plenty of energy left. I'm playing this just like I don't know. I'm rolling casually, and And I eventually got out, and we ran out of time. I thought, man, by the time I get out, this guy's gonna be exhausted, and then I'm gonna probably clock choke him to death. Um, but that didn't get to happen. But I did think like, man, that was a good match. I got a good workout. Um, he didn't let me get in the ghost escape was I think harder. That was one of the harder escapes that I've had, and I was excited, to see what came next. But then I realized, yeah, he's the only blue belt here, so um, that's likely going to be the best match that I get. And so I went up against one of the other white belts, and you can tell who's like brand new and who's not by who's wearing a gi and kind of how old it is. And then the other people were just kind of in regular t-shirts and shorts sort of thing, or or t-shirts and athletic um, tight pants, which girls like to wear. And so I went up against one of the white belts, and he was one of their white belts, which is to say that was his primary gym. He didn't train somewhere else and then just kind of join the club like what I'm doing. He started training there some odd semesters ago, and is still there. And he had some pretty good moves, but early in the early going of that match, he was sitting on his butt, and I sort of crawled towards him, engaged his guard, and then I was on my toes for went for a knee slide. And as I was beginning to knee slide, I got my underhook, I collected the head, and I started to angle my hips so that I could slip that out, and he tried to really forcibly put me back into guard. And what ended up happening was he ended up pulling his hamstring. ¿Qué tal? ¿Para zancudos?
Ujú. So te lo voy a dejar aquí a ver si sirve. Si sirve agarro otro.
Ok.
Pero tienes que apagar todas esas luces.
Uy,
Porque prende aquí.
yo no creo que tenga zancudos ya. Úsalo, pero si lo veo.
Okay.
Gracias. Um, Sorry about that. For those of you who speak Spanish, you'll catch all that stuff. Um, where was I? Oh yeah, so he pulled his hamstring. Um, we ended up pretty much just sitting the rest of the round out. He didn't. As soon as he realized it, and he, well, it showed on his face, and he told me right away, and we stopped immediately. I pulled away from him, and tried to make sure he was all right, because yeah, injuries can be pretty serious in sparring and practice, and whether it's jujitsu or it's judo or it's wrestling or whatever, you just take it easy, sit out for a minute, and just know for yourself, find out if it's just a little bit of a tough time, a little bit of soreness, or if it's good, you know, an actual injury. Anyway, so um, that was pretty much the end of it. There were very few rounds we got to go, but the second time I went, it was much of the same. Where the way the class was run, the sort of techniques that went on, and then the sparring sessions. But this time, there were two purple belts, four blue belts, and about as many uh, brand new people in regular athletic attire, which was awesome because um, I didn't expect it to be like that. Like when you have a regular class, like when any of my math classes or whatever, the class is super packed. First day, it's like people can't even breathe, and there's not enough air for everybody. And then after the first day, a lot of those people are gone, but it's still pretty full. and then about right before the drop date, so you don't get a withdrawal mark on your transcript, and you can still get a refund if you withdraw before that point. Then the class will sort of narrow out, and some of the seats will even be empty. And so that's kind of what I expected. Was a lot of people are trying this out of curiosity and whatever else, and I don't imagine all of them are going to have a great experience, but we'll probably lose half of them, after the first week. And that's not what happened. Pretty much everybody was there. It was awesome. It was awesome. That was really great. Um, and so we got to sparring, right? Sparring. We get to sparring, and the blue belts seem to only want to spar with each other, which I thought was kind of weird. And the blue belt that I had sparred with, who was a member of Gracie Baja, um, was not there on this second week, and these other blue belts only wanted to spar with each other. The purple belts wanted to spar with each other, and then afterwards they got off the mat. So, and then the next round the blue belts got off the mat as well. So I really only got to spar with white belts. And I don't know how long these guys have been training. They I don't know. I try to guess by the look of the use of their gi, assuming that they do gi all the time. Not assuming like, oh, they train gi 1 day a week, or 4 days a week they train no gi. No, I try to assume that that's all the training they get, and if it looks brand new, there's a chance that they are brand new. And if it looks worn out, then it's likely their gi and they didn't buy it that worn out. And then you kind of get a look at their belt as well. Like, for example, for that blue belt from the week prior, for all I know, he's a brand new blue belt. You know, he could have just gotten his blue belt. He could have been having an off week. I could have been having a really good day. He could have been having a really bad day or something. And maybe next time we get on the mat together, he's gonna mop the floor with me. Who knows? But I was really hoping to catch him. I thought I was going to. And then this second go, yeah, I only went with white belts, and the white belts there were just they didn't feel like total noobs. They try to use technique. They knew some techniques, and it's just a matter of how good they are at pulling off a move, versus how good I am at defending it. Right? This is how jiu-jitsu works. An armbar isn't a bad technique just because you can't pull it off on an upper belt. That just means they're better at defending it than you are at pulling it off, and vice versa. Like they're gonna land it on you, and you're gonna have a hard time defending. And it's not because you don't know the defense, and it's not because they're doing the technique with a different sequence or anything. It's just they're better at pulling it off than you are at defending it. So yeah, that's what it felt like for me with these other white belts, was just that their the difference between our skills was pretty drastic. And as I was rolling with this the first partner that I had, I was keeping an eye on the blue belts, which is to give you some idea of how relaxed I was. I was keeping an eye on the blue belts, and I saw them, and I thought, those kind of look like white belts. They look like white belts sparring. They look like they know some moves, but they're real sloppy. Their base is not very good. They're missing a lot of key details in making a move work. Like, for example, when you're hitting a sweep or something, or you're and knowing which how to engage your feet and how to use your hands. The real basics, and how to bridge properly. That sort of stuff. And I thought, man, and it's, I could be wrong. Jiu-jitsu is one of those things. It's not just jiu-jitsu, but grappling in general is one of those things that you see it as a spectator, and it looks so obvious, and you want to just shout things at people and say, the underhook is right there. Get the underhook. What's wrong with you? And it becomes almost comedic. But when you're in there, it's like don't yell at anybody on the mat if you don't practice, because I'll tell you what, It's a whole lot harder than it looks, and it's whole lot more confusing than it looks. You're paying attention to like every part of your body at the same time. It's not that obvious as it is to just look at it as a picture. But yeah, I got to look at the blue belts, and I thought like, man, that's they don't seem to be quite on the level of the blue belts I rolled with last week, which had me very much enthused. And when I saw these guys, I thought, oh man, I maybe won't have as good of a match with them. They were closer to my size than this other blue belt was, and they didn't look to be as technically skilled. But again, I could be wrong. It was just my observation. Um, but then they got off the mat after that, so I didn't get to spar with either of them anyway. And then I sparred with another white belt and another white belt, and I'll tell you the difference between our skill levels were pretty drastic. And to give you an example, I help my coach in teaching kids class, and sometimes when we have an odd number of students, I will take turns sparring with the kids so that they all have a partner. And I gotta go real light, they're not the biggest kids. Some of them are 8 years old or 10 years old, 12 years old. So there's a big difference. So I kind of just make them work. That's the only thing I'm there to do is apply some resistance, And if they get on top of me, I start working an escape slowly and with with without much force, so that they know to defend and things like that. And then when they try to pull off a submission to try to defend and such. So that's that's a lot of what it felt like to roll with these other white belts. That I could pretty much get out anytime I wanted to. I could pretty much submit them from anywhere I wanted to. I I'll tell you this. We were starting in back control, and I had the guy got was on my back, and we were starting seated in a seatbelt position, and I kind of just I went 2-on-1 on the choke arm, and he started to defend, and I he pulled his underhook arm through a little bit further, and I just straight arm locked him. I straight arm locked his underhook arm from there, and I thought, man, I remember that happened to me on my first day of jiu-jitsu. And I thought like I don't know, it's been a long time since I've been submitted by something like that. Something like that, or a guillotine, or um I don't know, the other stuff like arm bars and rear naked chokes and stuff. When I roll with my black one of the black belts at my gym, he murders me. When I roll with the purple belts, they often the moves I get caught in are probably arm bars, kimuras, and darces. So, but I thought like that's a really bizarre thing. I was kind of just using it as 2-on-1 control to keep him from having his support arm. So I was like, okay, well if he goes for the choke, the only thing he's got is a lapel, and if I stay deep on that arm, it's gonna be hard for him to get it. I think that was my idea, and so I grabbed a hold of it, and I was able to like his I was able to just break his grip loose, and then I just kind of put a little bit of pressure on it, and he tapped, and I thought, man, that's not something I would tap to. That's not something that, or maybe any of the other white belts who are not totally new at my gym would tap to. So for all I know, that this guy is just a month in, or just bought a gi to start this class or whatever. But his gi looked a little more worn than that, and he did try to pull off some stuff. Because we reset and we did it again, you know, and every time I went for something different, and I was just hoping for more, you know. I had a real good workout with that blue belt the day before, and that's kind of what I was hoping for again. And so I'm actually considering leaving the club. Not because I don't know, they're beneath me or they're not. It's not as good as my gym or whatever. It's not for any egotistical reasons really. It's just that I know that instead of going there on Monday evenings or Monday nights rather, I could stay at PG Monday night, or I could go to the advanced judo class Monday night, and I could get more experience. I could have a more rapid growth than I could there, where it's kind of like I don't know, the days at PG where I'll spar with the new guy, you know, to let him get some work in, because I'm not gonna try to kill him, and I can control that myself. I can apply enough resistance to where he just gets to work, and instead of him just getting slaughtered the first day. And or when I spar with the kids, like instead of killing them, just kind of make them work so they can work their technique. And so I feel like that's a lot of what I'll end up having to do at the jiu-jitsu club, which I want to do for their benefit, so that they like people don't quit, because they're just like, man, I'm just a noob rolling with a bunch of noobs, and I'm not learning anything at it, like from this. I don't want that to happen, but at the same time, like I have so limited time. Like I do homework, and then I work on making tables every night pretty much, and then the rest of the days I'm either in class or I'm at the gym, you know, at PG, or I'm at judo. So I don't have a whole lot of time, and I thought like my Monday nights, man, those were like the some of the only nights I had free most of the time. And if I'm gonna make you, if I'm gonna fill that spot in my schedule, then I would prefer it to be for something that is really really beneficial, whether that be for running errands, or working on furniture, or training at one of the other places. So I don't know. I'm really only uploading live because I kept trying to upload, and it kept crashing, and my DSLR is not charged. So, but let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you have a jiu-jitsu club at your school, which would be awesome. And the tuition is super cheap, by the way. At my school, it's like $80 for the semester, which is like it's dirt compared to what you pay at your regular jiu-jitsu club. And uh, but let me know what you would do in my case, or what you would, if you were one of the new guys, what you would want, um, for someone like me to do. You know, one of the albeit white belt but more experienced white belts. You know, and well, yeah, I don't want to give up on them, but at the same time, I don't want to waste my time. So I know that may sound arrogant. I'm really not trying to be. It's just I think of it, trying to think of it pragmatically. You know. But yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments, and like, share, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube nonsense. Thanks for watching, guys.